maritime sector is important to Nigeria's economic survival, yet is riddled with lots of challenges and complications.
Where you have an efficient and effective port, volume of trade goes up.
That is the impact that shipping really creates today. It has been and it still does.
Join us on All Things Maritime here on Integrity Radio as we discuss the way forward to improving the efficiency and transparency of the Nigerian maritime sector every Thursday at 12 p.m. on soundcloud.com/integrity-radio. With your host, Faith Onigbinde. You're welcome to Integrity Radio. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Faith Onigbinde, your host on the program for today. Welcome to All Things Maritime. Today we'll be taking a closer look at some transport issues, particularly in the maritime sector. And to help me with this conversation, I have joining me today Mr. Oluyinka Onigbinde. He's the Assistant Editor, Shipping Position, Daily Newspaper and Public Relations Officer, Maritime Reporter Association of Nigeria. You are welcome.
Thank you.
Good. And also joining for this conversation, we have Mr. Rowland Ekanma, a friend of the house.
Good morning, Lagos. Good morning.
He's the editor, Daily Focus Nigeria, an online news platform, and a resident maritime reporter. Thank you so much for being here today.
Good to be here.
Okay, before we jump into the issues, maybe we need to also clarify why transport is important to the ecosystem in the maritime.
Of course, there is no gainsaying that the maritime transport system is the backbone of the nation's economy. And you can only know the impact of the maritime transport system through its contribution to the nation's gross domestic product, that's the GDP. Having said that, every other sector in the nation's economy rely on the maritime transport sector for the delivery of their materials, for the delivery of the needed materials, which means that the maritime sector is the backbone of all sectors.
Mm-hmm. So let's look at some of the main elements of the maritime transport infrastructure. Can you break that down for us?
All right, talking about the main element of the maritime transport sector, I think you'll be looking at the different modes of transportation sector we have in the maritime sector, which include the waterways, the road, the rail, and even the air. So it's also part of it as well.
So now, the topic of discussion was, the issues, the transport issues we have. Can we, go into the meat of the matter now and discuss the challenges we have in the transport system in the maritime?
If you have to discuss these challenges, perhaps we'll also look at, just like I mentioned, some of the mode of this transportation, they all have their own peculiar challenges. Mm-hmm. And let's take, for example, the ship that bring in cargoes into the country. Many of the ships that bring in cargo into the countries are foreign owned. Many of our Nigerian vessel owners do not have what it takes, to get the kind of vessel that bring in these ships that bring in these cargoes into the country. And they have the challenges of it has to do with insecurity. Mm-hmm. It has to do with lack of finance. When you talk about the issue of cabotage vessel financing fund, presently they've been agitating for.
Sorry, before you move on, break down the cabotage financing fund.
All right, the cabotage financing fund is a 2% levy surcharge that is being charged by the government from the ship owners, and this money has been there for about 18 years now.
Exactly.
And they've been asking that this money be released to them, to fund their vessel, to buy vessel and all of that. But they've been a kind of back and forth as regards who owns the money. And as a result of that, they've not been able to acquire the standard vessel that is needed, for maritime transport business, in bringing in goods from outside the country, lifting of crude oil and all of that. And this is one of the major problems we have confronting Nigerian ship owners. Rowland, you want to say something as well?
Well, as regards the CVFF, Cabotage Vessel Financing Fund, a lot of ship owners are out of business when it comes to vessel acquisition for this, because government is supposed to assist ship owners with fund in acquisition of vessel. But this is not forthcoming, and the regulatory agency responsible for this is the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency. There has been agitations over the years on this issue, but the disbursement is not forthcoming. To that extent, as we speak, most of the ship owners in Nigeria, they are out of business because they are relying on this fund for them to get vessels. Now, the question is, where is the fund at the moment? How much is that fund? Nobody can tell you where is the fund and how much that money has amounted to, as we speak, is in trillions.
Of course, there's no gain also saying that this kind of fund is being used by the government, permit me to say that, because this money is just being kept in a place, and as a result of that, some people use the money for their own personal use, and then, they make their profit from it. Because up to date, like Rowland said, we don't know the total amount of the CVFF that we have presently at the bank.
So it's just...
So,
as we speak, it's in foreign currency.
Of course.
Is in foreign currency. And if, as we speak, that money is, let's say, $1 trillion, you know what it takes to acquire vessels with that fund, And there was a time, I think some years back, some Greece ship owners came into Nigeria to do business with these ship owners. And what they need is just a paltry sum for them to get vessels on what is it called now? Hire purchase, so to say. And when you do business, you get money. You pay, before you know it, in the next 5 years, you'll be able to pay up your debt, and that vessel will become yours. But that effort was frustrated. Mm-hmm. So we don't know where we are.
Was frustrated by who?
By the government, of course. By the government, and because they've been, like I said, the Minister of Finance is saying that the fund belongs to the government, and the ship owners are saying this money belongs to them. So there's been kind of controversy as to who is the owner of this fund. So that is where we have.
So it's an issue of ownership.
It's an issue of ownership.
It's an issue of ownership.
So because the government is saying that if you are contributing 2%, that 2% belongs to them, but the ship owners are of the opinion that it is their own contribution and they can as well withdraw from it whenever they need it. But government is saying this money belongs to us.
The contribution was tagged what? Was named what?
Cabotage Vessel Financing Fund. It is meant to be used for financing cabotage, meant to be used for financing ship owners. That was the original idea behind the CPF.
Now the word cabotage there means local content.
Yeah.
To encourage Nigerian ship owners acquire vessels, to remain in business, to be in trade, international trade as regards shipping. The Merchant Shipping Act states that every vessel plying on Nigerian waters must be must be managed by indigenous operators to encourage Nigerians, because the foreigners are taking advantage of our waterways because we don't have those vessels to ply the waterways. Yeah. So this fund is to encourage local content.
Yeah.
That is just the basic of what we are talking about here.
And this same fund is now in contest between the ship owners and the government.
Exactly. Although the government is not saying that the money is not in place, but delay in disbursement for them to acquire a vessel is what we are looking at, is what we are talking about.
So they're not saying they won't disburse.
No, what the bone of contention now is that we have a Minister of Finance that is adamant on the fact that this fund does not belong to the ship owners.
Okay.
And they've been, I think they are, the last time I spoke to the president of the Ship Owners Association, they said they're going to court as regards the status of the ownership. Well, we'll keep our hands crossed and see what comes out of it.
We just hope that, the case of going to court is not going to drag on for years.
Uh-huh.
That's just another concern.
Of course. Having said that, looking at the challenges, of course, we also have the issue of insecurity on our waters. Let's say in the last 5 months, according to a report by NIMASA, they said piracy has reduced. But the issue of piracy is one of those issues that has affected the maritime transport business, because you never can tell when your ship will be attacked. You never can tell when your vessel will be attacked. Security on our waters is very porous, and it's affecting us. Particularly when it comes to because the value of the goods you bring in, you need to look at the cost of security. Some people hire foreign security to follow some of these vessels, and the cost will definitely, me and you will have to pay for that cost, definitely. So this is one of those issues that is affecting transport business as regards to ship owners.
Okay. Maybe we want to look a little inwards now with regards to transportation. Let's, take a quick look at, transport inland.
Okay.
Okay,
now when we talk about transport inland, I believe you are talking about trucks, owners, truck association, and all of that. I think the major problem is not also far-fetched from some of the challenges that is confronted by ship owners. It also has to do with finance. Many of them have complained that the price of spare part and all of that is affecting their business. And as a result of that, to carry a container from Apapa Port to Ikeja cost about 1.5 million naira. Now look at the cost of moving just a container from Apapa Port to Ikeja.
1.5.
Yes, for a 40-foot container. So it's one of those issues that is affecting.
And it's not because of diesel.
Well, of course, it's also part of it. They rely on diesel as well. Poor infrastructure, the road network too, it's also affecting them. They need to change tires almost every month. They need to change spare part because of the bad and comatose state of our roads. And this is not helping them. The issue of congestion on our road too is also one of the factors. Congestion into the ports and coming from the port is one of the issues that has also affected the truck owners. And the agitators, sometimes they've been agitating, and I think sometimes around last year, around February, the Nigerian Port Authority launched what we call the e-call-up system. It's an electronic call-up system in order to try to reduce the traffic on our ways. Before now we used to have trucks that just come to the port irrespective of whether they have a container to carry or not. They just come scouts to see whether there's anybody that wants to lift a container and all of that. But now NBA came in and they introduced the e-call-up system, try to reduce the menace of what do we call it now? The traffic congestion on our road. And with the e-call-up system, of course, we can say that there's been a kind of reduction in the charges that is being charged. Okay. But beyond that, we still need to look forward to reducing these charges, because it's telling on us, it's telling on how much we buy goods that we want to get in the market, because the price is still on the very high side.
Mr. Rowland, you want to add something to that?
Yes, I just want to correct an impression there. For transport costs, Lagos to ports to Ikeja, I think it's about between 400 and 450, not 1,000 naira now yet. No. Because the issue is this, December last year, peak period, November, December last year, peak period for importation of goods into the country, Christmas, New Year, festivity, it was about that price you mentioned, 1.23. And there was congestion everywhere. Now, for the water transportation, we have what we call barge operations. Now they came into the system to move goods from the port, mother ports, through the waterways down to bonded terminals, or link where there is less traffic, then continue the onward journey. So that was able to bring about competition between moving your goods from the waterways through the barges or exiting your consignment from the seaports. So basically, with this competition in place, those guys has no option but to reduce the cost. So as we speak, I think it's about 450, 500 Lagos airport from the seaport. Yes, from the seaport to Ikeja and the hinterland within Lagos State. So that's just what I want to add to what he said.
Okay, so looking at, all these challenges, looking at all these, should I say drawbacks? Let me use that word. How has this impacted the distribution chain?
It's definitely has affected the distribution chain, and it's for instance, let me give you a scenario. He made mention of the issue of badges, and of course, even when we talk about badges, we still can't not rely on badges because it does not really operate in all the 36 states of the country. The activities has only been in, let's say, Lagos and environs. And as a result of this, somebody that needs to move his container from Apapa port, from the mother port, to the person is going to Sokoto, it needs to rely on diesel, and the issue of insecurity, like we said, is also there. We have had issues of hijacking of containers. People hijack containers when on the road and all of that. So it has affected the distribution chain. It has affected, and that is why some importers, they do not want to bring in their goods. Some people, it has also made us to lose some of the investors. People now try to take their goods to neighboring countries, Benin Republic and all of that. It's affecting us, and as a result of this, Benin Republic and others, they are getting the money that would have been accruable to the federal government.
Sadly, that's a very sad situation. When you talked about insecurity, I'm thinking maybe one more question going back to the water now, not inland, with regards to the recent Russia-Ukraine war going on. How has that affected?
Well, from my understanding, it has affected the price of crude oil. And we can see what is happening, the queues and all of that. Yeah. And it's one of the factors that we said is affecting us. We need diesel for ships. We need diesel for trucks. We need diesel for most of our daily activities that we run. And we all know that since this war started between Ukraine and Russia, so many countries has been, agitating, they've been crying, and that is the effect that we are seeing in our country. We hope that the Russia-Ukraine war will come to an end very soon, because that's what the government is telling us. That's what they are making us to believe, that this war is one of the factors affecting.
When you say it that way, it's like you don't believe them.
Well, they just have to tie something around something in order for them to have it. Well, I don't let me sound pessimistic.
That actually sounds like you think they're just looking for someone to point a finger at.
I think so.
You think so?
I think so.
So we might actually not have that big an issue.
Sincerely, because what is affecting our refineries? What is affecting Dangote refineries? What is affecting, when you look at the numbers of crude oil, the barrels of crude oil that is being stolen out of this country on a daily basis, you weep, for this country. And I don't know. Our trade mostly has been with the US and not with Russia, particularly in terms of crude oil. Although US is also been affected with this war. Yeah. But if we are going to tie anything. It should be because of United States of America, not because of Russia-Ukraine war.
Okay, so what you're saying is, since we are dealing with the U.S.,
of course,
and the U.S. is they're not the ones at war,
of course,
we shouldn't be this hard hit.
Of course.
But if the U.S. also has an increase in their pump price, because that is also an issue. Don't you think that the ripple effect will also get the ripple effect?
Yeah, I think you're right, but I wouldn't want to say that is 100% what is happening.
Okay.
But from the little information I have, I think the government is just trying to play smart. Please forgive me.
Well, it's your opinion and you're entitled.
Of course.
It's your opinion and you're entitled. Okay, before we go into way forward, I want to bring this up because it's a conversation that has been had with regards to the quality of trucks, quality of trucks on the road, quality of the drivers themselves. Can you comment on this?
Yeah, good. That's a good one. I think last year the Nigerian Port Authority introduced what we call standard operating procedures for trucks that operate within the maritime sector. Some of the standard operating procedure includes that the trucks that must come into the port must have, the lamp, what's it called, headlamp, and it must be in shape because we've had issues of rickety trucks. Sometimes you'll be on the road and you see a truck that is almost falling off. But the Nigerian Port Authority in recent time have been able to armor on that, and we've seen I think we are seeing changes in the kind of trucks that comes into the ports to do business. But talking about the drivers, I think we still have a very long way to go as regards some of these drivers, because I don't know, I see them as soon as they enter into that truck, perhaps maybe they see themselves as Lord and Lord of all. It's their behaviors at times. We need to maybe test them, we need to continue to orientate them. They need to have the understanding. Some of them do not even obey traffic laws and all of that.
Some of them, just some. I think we use more like most.
So it's one of those issues that is affecting us, because we've had issues of container falling on, killing persons, falling on vehicles and all of that as a result of indiscipline of some of these drivers. So I think the government needs to still do more in terms of orientation, giving these drivers the education that they need as regards when they are on the road. So it is very, very important.
So we've talked about quite a number of challenges. I mean, it seems like, a major surgery needs to be done,
of course,
in that sector. Where would you start? Where would you advise or suggest that one starts?
Well, the government needs to pay attention to the maritime sector. They need to actually ensure that when you go to other parts of the world, when you have the opportunity to travel to other parts of the world, you see how business is being done. The government is not taking the maritime sector as a business. They need to start taking it as a business. It's not just about how much we make, how much is coming from the seaports, how much do we, how much is custom generating. No, maritime is a business. It's worth trillions of dollars. So the government needs to pay critical attention to it. They need to pay critical attention to the waterways. They need to pay critical attention to barges. They need to pay critical attention to the rail. They need to pay critical attention to the truck business and all of that. So it encompasses everything. So I think the government still needs to pay attention. Then it's not everything that the government can do. Where the government sees that they are not capable of doing it, they can introduce the PPP. Let the private sector also come in. Where they cannot manage some certain things, let the private sector handle it. The government cannot do all of that. Well, we thank the government. I think in 2006 we had a port reform that brought about some concessionals. We have the ports, we have some concessionals, we have ENL, we have ports and cargo and all of that. Private being managed by private sector, and this has brought change. But we still need more. Government still needs to do more. Government still needs to bring in private sectors to handle some certain aspects of the maritime industry. If they don't do that, we will still be where we are. So there is need for government to pay critical attention to the maritime sector. It's not just about the oil and gas sector alone. We need to look at the blue economy. There are so many resources that is embedded in the blue economy that is beyond the oil and gas that we talk about today. Only if government. Is it Sweden now? No, not Sweden. What's the name of this country? Their main source of GDP is from the ocean, fishes and all of that, and that's Norway. Yes. So the government need to pay attention. I think that's just the major way out. They need to bring in more private sectors to handle some certain things if we really need this change we are talking about. Rowland, you want to chip in?
Okay.
For the war in Ukraine,
Yeah.
I was opportune to interact with the port manager, Tinkan Island Port, I think penultimate week. And he told me categorically that the war in Ukraine is affecting importation into Nigeria because some of the vessels that normally ply the Black Sea has not been able to sail through that channel because of the war. And it will take you extra cost to navigate through the Indian Ocean. It's like you are going to Ikeja instead of coming through Agedin Bay. You take all the way from what is this expressway now? Bega, Jodu Bega. It's a long distance. So he said with that, some of the vessels are declining to come to Africa. And Nigeria is the hub when it comes to African maritime operation. Yeah. So that is a major factor. And of course, goods importation also. Some items that are basically coming from that axis, Ukraine, Russia, Turkey, those Eastern Europe are not coming to Nigeria, which, other words, affected the throughput of vessel call at the nation's seaport. Then for transportation, land transportation, I think last week there was a forum organized by a colleague of ours where we have truck owners in attendance and, of course, the NDLE again, So the bone of contention in that interaction has to do with the drivers, for flouting the road regulation and traffic laws. So at the end of the day, it was agreed among the truck owners and the agency that before you come into the port to lift consignment, you must undergo a test, a urine test, to know if you are
a test for drugs.
Yes, if you are good to lift any item from the port or not, and if you are test positive, definitely you won't be able to, go in there and lift consignment as a driver, which I want to say is a laudable initiative from the drivers and, of course, the agency.
Awesome. And I think if we keep on going in this direction, we should be looking at better days. Yeah. You talked from the angle of what the government should do. Now, looking at Shippers Council, looking at the shippers, what would you suggest?
Well,
and including the truckers. Yeah.
I would suggest that they still need to come together, look at some of these challenges and look at what they think they can do. They need to engage the government as well. They need to let the government know. They are the one doing the business. They are the one that is into the business. So they need to government know where they shoe pinches, and they need to table out some of their challenges and see how they can ameliorate some of these challenges with the help of the government.
Okay. Well, that's all the time will allow us to take. Thank you so much for coming in, Mr. Oluyinka Onigbinde, the Assistant editor, shipping position, daily newspaper and public relations officer, Maritime Reporters Association of Nigeria, and also Mr. Rowland Ekanma, the editor, Daily Focus Nigeria, an online news platform, and also a resident maritime reporter. Thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Looking forward to having you again, hopefully.
Of course.
My name is Faith Onigbinde, your host on the program here on Integrity Radio. Thank you so much for being a part of the program. Don't forget to like, comment, and share. And if you have any questions, any concerns, of course, we would like to discuss that too. In the meantime, I'd say have a lovely day. Bye-bye.
You're listening to Integrity Radio. This is Integrity Radio, bringing you interesting insights and discussions around embracing a Nigeria that prefers integrity over corruption. With your host, Faith Onigbinde. Integrity Radio, shining a light to a better Nigeria.